So this tutorial is to show you how to put a photo to your timeline and to have some animation. However, the first thing, remember, when you put something to the timeline, it will always set the sequence for it. So you already want to make sure that you have some video that's already there, that you can make sure that your sequence is formatted properly. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab one of these clips to make sure that is formatted for the Canon camera that we utilize. So I'm going to grab one of these movies. It's taking a little while, so I'll probably load this first to make sure that it's formatted my timeline to this video. So you want to add your images after you've already had a video there. So I'm going to go back to my image and load it into my source window by double clicking. And then what we're going to do is we're going to drag it to the timeline twice, and we're going to stack it over each other. This is where the snapping comes into play. If you ever have this magnet on, it's called snapping, you'll notice it'll snap to, like you can see those two triangles next to the photo in the video, it'll snap to the other out point. Alright, so now you can see that we have all this black empty space, so it kind of looks bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to double click this video, or excuse me, this photo to load it into our source window. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it fill up the entire page. So it's important to have your playhead over the photo so you can see the change happening here. If you hit these reveal arrows next to motion, you can see now you have scale. Like we talked about, we can do keyframes, which means it can get bigger and smaller from point to point, but in this point we actually just want to make it large and fill up the whole screen. So you can drag the slider, or you can just type in a number, and then now you can see it fills up the whole screen. However, it's a little distracting because it is in focus. I did add an oil filter to it in Photoshop. So what we're going to do is we're going to blur out this background photo. So we're going to come to your effects tab, and if you know that there's an effect that you want to use and you don't want to search for it, you can type it. So we're going to use a Gaussian blur, and then I can find Gaussian blur here. You want to click on the actual icon, click, hold, and drag, and you can see there's a little closed fist, meaning he's holding onto something. The plus sign means it would add to here. You can also see the darkness around the frame when I put it over it and I let go. Now you'll see something pop up here. It's adding the Gaussian effect. But since we added the filter and haven't changed it, there's no change. If we drag the number to the right, you can see it can blur it out a lot. It can blur it out a little. So I'm going to blur it out a good bit. I can also change what portion of the background I'm seeing simply by going up here to position. Just like in math class, this is your X value, which is left and right. This is your Y value, which is up and down. So if I wanted to drag it down to have more of the horse background, I could. Or if I wanted to drag it up and have less of the horse background and more of the grass, which I think looks better, I'm going to go ahead and drag it up. But not so much so that I have that black bottom. Now it looks a little bit better than having this black empty area. You could stop there, but I think it's nice sometimes to have some animation. So what we're going to do is we're going to double click this top photo so we can tell it's loaded because it's the one that's shorter. And we're going to go to effects controls. So we're going to use keyframes like we talked about previously in class to animate and move this photo. So we're going to hit the reveal arrow by the scale so we can add keyframes. Where your playhead is at on the photo is where you're going to add keyframes. And we can see here we're at the front. So I'm going to click this little stopwatch looking icon to let them know we're going to add a keyframe. You can see there's a keyframe right here, and it's blue to let me know that there is a keyframe there. So at this point it's 100%. So you have to think about, if you want to zoom into it, you could start at a certain percent and go higher. So I think I'm going to have the photo fill the frame first. So I'm going to say at this point I want it to be 114% because it fills to the top and it fills to the bottom. So I want you to do that for your photo. But now I'm going to go ahead and move my playhead partway through and add another keyframe and have it zoom into it. The shorter the distance between the keyframes, the quicker the zoom will be. So here I'm going to click add another keyframe, and you can see currently I have 2 keyframes, but nothing's changed because I haven't changed the number. Now I'm going to change the number from 114 to maybe 120. Maybe that's not enough. Maybe let's go 140. And then now if I go back to the beginning, you can see it's curving the line to let me know there's a change. I can go back to the beginning, hit play, and now we can see. So it zooms into the photo. Again, if you want a quicker zoom, you just move your keyframe closer together. You can click, hold, and drag your keyframe, and you'll see it's going to zoom very quickly. Or if I want it to be more gradual, I could make it further apart so it's very slow zoom. When you animate photos, it's not really good to animate one photo back to back. Like animate, animate, animate. It gets a little excessive. But you can also move the photo as well. But I think this is neat to kind of zoom into it. You could also zoom out to it, and by zooming out would be just the opposite. Higher number here, lower number on this keyframe. The other thing you can do is if you want to move into, like say the person, I want to move into his face, I could also do that with the position. So by clicking on the stopwatch, I'm engaging it to let me add a keyframe, which I have, and while it's zooming, I could also have it go up to his face. So I could say, at this point, I want to go more to his face. But again, I don't want to go to where I have the top open. I usually will not always do scale and position. Often I'll just do scale to have a little bit of a zoom. So basically you're animating photos in Adobe Premiere utilizing keyframes.